Turning 60 changed everything. There are things I used to do that I absolutely don't do anymore. And honestly, life's been so much better because of it. I'm RJ and I'm 62, and I might not look like your typical retiree, but I've been fortunate enough to experience what I call mini retirements throughout my life. In my career, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to take some mini breaks between job transitions. Sometimes projects came to natural ends, and sometimes I simply decided that I wanted to take some time off. In any case, over the past 40 years, I managed to take off about 6 to 12 months every 4 or 5 years or so. I didn't view these sabbaticals as vacations, but rather I saw them truly as mini retirements. Perhaps you could call them down payments on my final and true retirement, which is where I am now. And in each case, these pauses gave me perspective long before turning 60. So whether you're approaching retirement 20 years away, 10 years away, even 5 years away, or you're already there, these shifts changed everything for me, and they might just do the same for you. So what are the things that I stopped doing now that I'm 60? Number one, saying yes out of obligation. I don't say yes to just keep the peace anymore. My time has become non-negotiable. Psychologists call this the disease to please. This compulsion to agree to things that we really don't want to do. According to a study, people-pleasing behavior is linked to increased cortisol levels and significantly higher rates of burnout. The irony? By the time we reach retirement, we've already accumulated approximately 15,000 hours, nearly 2 full years of your life spent doing things we didn't want to do purely out of obligation. In my 40s, I worried what people would think if I said no. In my 50s, I started making excuses, crafting elaborate stories about prior commitments that didn't really exist. Well, now at 62, I simply say, nah, that doesn't work for me, without really giving any justification. Protecting your energy isn't selfishness, it's actually self-preservation. And at our age, peace matters more than pleasing everyone. If learning to say no is something you struggle with too, please hit the like button. That little thumbs up helps more people in their 60s to discover this message and lets me know which topics resonate with you the most. All right, the number 2 thing that I gave up after 60 is ignoring my health. I don't take my health for granted anymore. As Jim Rohn wisely put it, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. I spent my whole life thinking I had times to fix things later. And then guess what? Later came. The truth blindsided me. Health isn't just another asset. It's literally the asset that makes everything else possible. So the cruel irony of retirement is that you finally have the time to travel, to play with your grandkids, spend time with your other family, pursue hobbies, but your body might not cooperate. According to Fidelity Investments, the average 65-year-old retiree today will spend over $150,000 on healthcare alone during retirement. And honestly, I think that's actually pretty conservative. What researchers call health span, i.e. the years you're healthy enough to live fully, matters more than lifespan. The Harvard study of adult development, which tracked people for 80 years, found that strong, healthy relationships and prioritizing physical well-being during early adulthood have significant impact on the quality of life later in life, more so than genetics. The concept of compressed morbidity revolutionized my thinking. The goal with compressed morbidity isn't adding years to your life, but it's compressing the time spent in illness and disability into the shortest time period possible, and hopefully right at the end of your life. As the famous Dr. Peter Attia always says, the idea is to die young, as late as possible. Your body at 60 is the result of how you treated it at 40, and your body at 80 will reflect on how you're doing it today. Start now. Not with extreme measures, but with consistency, because retirement without health isn't retirement at all. It's just expensive suffering. Number 3, chasing other people's approval. I realize no one's thinking about you as much as you think. Psychologists call it spotlight effect. We vastly overestimate how much attention others pay to our appearance, actions, and mistakes. We feel like we're on stage with a spotlight on us, when in reality, most people are just too caught up in their own spotlights to notice us. I understand that we're social creatures by nature, but many of us take it way too far, living our lives according to an imaginary audience that's barely paying attention. That presentation at work that I obsessed over for weeks, most people forgot about it by lunchtime. The outfit outfit I worried wasn't impressive enough, nobody noticed, nobody cared. That awkward thing I said at a dinner once, maybe I'm the only one who remembers it. Before, I constantly shaped my decisions around what would impress my friends or peers at work. The mental energy I wasted seeking validation, frankly, was exhausting. You know, the first time that I decided to step away from the corporate ladder, way back in my 20s to travel the world, you wouldn't believe the opinions people shared. Things like, you're destroying your career, you'll never work again, or you're ruining your life. In reality, I experienced the exact opposite of destroying or ruining my life. If I'd listened to them, I would have missed the experiences that shaped who I am today. And now, I wear what feels good. I say what I believe. I make decisions that align with my values, not others' expectations. The fourth thing I gave up after 60 is hoarding stuff I don't use. You always have that thought, oh, I'll need it someday. Well, guess what? Someday never came. The average American home contains over 300,000 items, according to professional organizers. And as we age, we tend to accumulate even more, holding on to things just in case, or for the memories. My garage used to be a museum of just-in-case items. Tools I used once in a decade, sports equipment for hobbies that I outgrew years before, documents from companies I no longer work for. And after my third mini-retirement, I realized all this stuff wasn't security, it was actually weight. Every item required mental inventory, physical space, and maintenance. So now I ask, does this bring me joy or utility today, not someday? If not, it goes. If I haven't touched it in a year, it probably goes. We moved into a new house several years ago, and I'm pretty sure we got rid of at least 30% of everything we owned in that move. Since then, I've donated 12 carloads of possessions in the last year. My home feels lighter, but more importantly, so does my mind. So keep what brings joy, let go of the rest. Your kids don't want most of it anyways. Trust me on that one. Number 5, delaying. I don't post joy anymore. Baby boomers actually spend more on travel than any other age group, about $6,000 annually, according to recent studies. But many wait until it's too late to enjoy those experiences fully. When I look back, I used to live by a strict someday calendar. After I hit my savings goal, always pushing experiences into some mythical future when everything would be perfect timing. In my teens and early 20s, I always felt poor and didn't go on trips or experiences with friends. Even after my first 2 mini retirements, I'd still catch myself doing the same behavior. And I knew better, either delaying gratification or simply not doing anything in order to save a little bit of money. And the reality, I could have spent more. And more to the point, I could have done more. I'm not saying that everyone should just do whatever they want whenever they want. That's totally reckless. Rather, I'm just saying your default shouldn't be that I can't afford it or I want to save money. Now I practice what I call strategic immediacy. If something brings genuine joy, i.e. a concept, quantity of time with family, a new skill, I prioritize it today, not tomorrow. I've moved it from my someday list to the this month list. Today, I balance my future and present selves much more wisely now, because nobody's giving you a gold medal for being the most self-sacrificing person in the retirement home. The real tragedy isn't running out of money, it's running out of health, energy, and time to use that money for what truly matters. Okay, I'm curious, what's one experience that you've been postponing for someday? Share it in the comments below. Sometimes putting it in writing is the first step to making it happen, and your story might inspire someone else to stop waiting too. All right, back to the list. Number 6, holding grudges. I don't hold grudges anymore. I realized they were only poisoning me. I used to collect grievances like some people collect stamps. I thought that holding on to these resentments somehow protected me or prepared me. And in reality, they were just emotional anchors dragging me behind, slowing me at every step. What I didn't understand then was something that psychologists call emotional compounding. Just like money grows on compound interest, negative emotions intensify when we keep reinvesting in them. That fleeting slight that hurt you becomes a festering wound. The small betrayal transforms into an unforgivable sin. And with each mental replay, the emotional taxes on your brain and emotions compound. I can't tell you how many times I felt hurt or slighted by a friend not including me or by being ignored. And then out of pride or pain, I'd let weeks or even months pass without reaching out. All the little interactions and moments we used to share, they just disappear. And it never actually made me feel better. I only felt lonelier. So I've stopped doing that. Even with people who've truly wronged me, I've learned that forgiveness, especially when they show genuine remorse or contrition, it frees me more than it frees them. Life's way too short to let resentment steal connection. I'd rather move forward with open hands than hold on with a closed heart. The older you get, the more you realize how little time you actually have for the things that drain your energy. Holding grudges is a young man's game. Now I have what I call my release ritual. When somebody wrongs me, I'll write it down in detail, how it made me feel, why it hurt, and I give myself 72 hours to feel it fully. And then I just tear it up and consciously let it go. I'm not saying that I forget or that I'll put myself in harm's way again. I'm just saying that I don't carry it with me anymore. There's a difference between remembering and reliving. My mental real estate is way too valuable for people who don't appreciate me. And frankly, I found that genuine forgiveness is the ultimate power move. It frees you while the other person is often still stuck. I don't know about you, but I sleep way better when I travel light. And at our age, good sleep is worth more than being right. The seventh thing that I gave up at 60 is being busy for the sake of being busy. I don't pack my schedule to feel important anymore. I've learned the art of productive stillness. Being busy used to be kind of a badge of honor. Certainly during my career, a jam-packed calendar was almost like a status symbol. "Sorry, I'm slammed" was practically my email signature. I'd fill every hour with projects, activities, and commitments. Even after work, I was always doing stuff to keep busy. I was addicted to the dopamine hit of crossing things off my to-do list. The fuller my calendar was, the more significant I felt. What I didn't realize was that this constant motion was really a clever disguise for fear. Fear of irrelevance, of stillness, of facing myself. Much of my time filling wasn't intentional. Rather, it was more just from the need to feel like I needed to be doing something. What I've discovered since is what researchers call time affluence, which UCLA professor Cassie Mulwinter-Holmes defines as feeling confident that you're able to accomplish everything you want to do. Having too much free time, over 5 hours daily, can be just as detrimental to happiness as having too little, like under 2 hours. People who feel time affluent are consistently happier, more creative, and make better decisions than those who are experiencing time poverty. The pandemic forced a lot of changes in all of us. For me, I had to stop and slow down. With nowhere to go and nothing to prove, I had to sit with myself. At first, it was excruciating. I felt antsy, unproductive, and even a bit worthless. But then something shifted. In that stillness, I found clarity I'd been missing for decades. Ideas flowed more freely. My relationships deepened because I was actually present, not mentally checking my watch for the next appointment. Even towards the end of my career, if you looked at my calendar, you'd see that I started blocking unscheduled time, even in my workday. Sometimes just to get work done, but often to simply think. Reflect on how I could do my job better, how I could support the company more effective, how I might mentor, people that work for me. That unstructured time turned out to be a game changer. It gave me space to rise above the noise and actually improve. And on a personal level, that same practice was even more powerful. It created room for clarity, creativity, and alignment. It was the kind of space most of us don't realize we're missing until we finally give ourselves permission to have that space. So now I deliberately build margin into my days, blocks of unscheduled time that I protect fiercely. I've learned to distinguish between activity and productivity, between motion and meaning. The most interesting retirees I know aren't the busiest ones. They're the ones who mastered selective engagement, pouring themselves into fewer but much more meaningful pursuits. Today, I measure my days by depth, not density, and I've discovered that presence with myself, with loved ones, is the true luxury at this stage of my life. Number 8. Comparing myself to others. Look, these days I don't measure my life against other people's highlight reels anymore. This mindset shift has been totally liberating. Back in the 1950s, a psychologist named Leon Festinger pointed out something we all quietly know, but usually don't acknowledge. We tend to measure ourselves by looking at others, what they have, what they've done. And in today's world with social media and endless scrolling, those comparisons hit harder than ever. I used to obsessively track how my peers were doing. The friends or business associates who landed the amazing new job with all the big title and the massive pay bump used to drive me crazy. I'd smile on the outside, but inside I was churning, jealous, competitive, and restless. I was constantly looking over the fence at somebody else's greener pastures, wondering why it wasn't me. It took me years to realize that no amount of comparison ever really brought me peace. It was only a distraction. And the truth is, their path wasn't mine to follow anyway. My growth began the moment I started watering my own grass. Theodore Roosevelt said it perfectly. Comparison is the thief of joy, and science has proven him right. Research repeatedly shows that when we compare upwards to those we perceive as doing better, our brain actually registers it similar to physical pain. During my many retirements, I had to confront that uncomfortable question. Who am I without my business card? What happens when my phone stops ringing? I realized I've been defining my worth by external metrics that were never going to make me happy. So now I practice what psychologists call temporal comparison instead of social comparison. I measure myself only against my past self. Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I more at peace than I was last year? The happiest retirees I've met aren't the wealthiest or most accomplished on paper. They're the ones who mastered self-referential thinking, defining their success on their own terms. Your retirement doesn't need to look like anyone else's to be deeply fulfilling. The only timeline that matters is your road. Number 9, overplanning every little thing. I don't grip the future with white knuckles anymore. I've learned to loosen my hold. For most of my career, I was the guy with 3 backup plans for my backup plans. My retirement spreadsheets have projections running to age 100 with multiple scenarios for inflation, market returns, healthcare costs. I approach vacations with military precisions, hourly itineraries, restaurant reservations, months in advance, and contingencies even for rain. I thought this level of planning gave me control, and what it really gave me was anxiety. When I was about to retire, I had every detail mapped out, and then reality happened. First, I retired a year or 2 earlier than I was expecting. Then the market got soft and kind of crashed. My health took an unexpected turn. We had a pandemic in the years before. My meticulously crafted plans became irrelevant almost overnight. So the truth is, excessive planning is often just a form of anxiety management. We plan to feel safe, to create the illusion of certainty in an inherently uncertain world. But as psychologist Harriet Lerner notes, anxiety blinds us to the very scenarios we fear most by keeping our focus fixated on them. During my years traveling the world, I was struck by a different approach to life. Many of my neighbors live with genuine financial uncertainty, yet they seem more at peace than my colleagues back home with 7-figure portfolios. They practice what Buddhists call non-attachment, acknowledging that change is the only constant in the world. So now, knowing that, I plan differently. I set directions rather than destinations. I create flexible frameworks rather than rigid roadmaps. And I prepare without pretending I can predict. For example, in travel, I research the must-sees, but leave days completely unscheduled. For finances, I focus on broad patterns over the exact numbers. I still know the numbers. I track them and I understand them, but I don't obsess over them like I used to. They don't control me anymore. I give myself permission to move outside the numbers, to make decisions that feel right, even if they don't look perfect on a spreadsheet. And that balance between data and intuition is where I've finally found peace. I've learned that some of life's richest moments come from the most unexpected detours. The sunset I wouldn't have seen if my flight hadn't been delayed. The conversations I wouldn't have had if my dinner reservation hadn't been lost. This shift didn't happen overnight. It's taken practice to loosen my grip on things, to accept that control is largely an illusion. But the reward has been totally profound. Less anxiety, more presence, and significantly more joy. But don't get me wrong, plans still matter, but flexibility matters more. And in retirement, that flexibility is the true foundation for freedom. If you're navigating retirement or preparing for it, please hit the like and subscribe for no-nonsense conversations about what really matters after the age of 60. I share fresh insights on retirement, mindset, lifestyle every week without the hyper fluff you see elsewhere. Because let's be honest, we don't have the time to waste on anything less than being authentic. And finally, the 10th thing I've stopped doing after the age of 60, which is waiting for the perfect time to start something new. I don't put life on hold anymore, waiting for some mythical right time that never seems to arrive. For decades, I kept a mental list of things I'd like to do someday, like learn Spanish, take up sailing, write that book, visit Japan. The list grew longer, but someday never came. There was always another deal to close, another company to turn around, another reason to postpone. At 59, when I finally retired for real, I pulled out that list with excitement, and then came the wave of doubts. Isn't it too late to learn Spanish now? My brain isn't what it used to be. Golfing, my age? What if I make a total fool of myself? Japan, that's a young person's trip with all that walking. I almost talked myself out of everything I've been looking forward to for years. Look, the truth is there's never a perfect time for anything important. There's always reasons to wait, to hesitate, to say, not yet. Life is lived in the messy middle, not some polished, perfect future state where all conditions are ideal. And in all that, I found that the beginning is the hardest part. The resistance before starting something new feels almost physical, a weight holding you in place. But once you take that first step, momentum builds. What seemed impossible becomes simply challenging, then routine, and then it becomes part of who you are. In 3 years, you'll be 3 years older, whether you start that thing or not. The question is, do you want to be 3 years older with that new experience, skill, or relationship, or without it? The perfect time is a total fantasy. All we really have is right now. So what's the big conclusion? When I look back at these 10 things I've stopped doing, one thing is totally clear. None of them were really about money. They were about how I was spending my time, my energy, and my peace of mind. Letting them go, that gave me more freedom and joy than any paycheck ever did. So life after 60 isn't about packing in more. It's about cutting out what no longer fits. These many retirements I took before 60, well, they showed me something early. Time is the only currency that truly matters. Not money, not recognition, just time and how you live inside that time. I spent years chasing goals, hitting targets, staying busy. But what I really wanted was freedom. Freedom from pressure, freedom from other people's expectations, from trying to prove something I no longer cared about. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Money can be replaced. Time can't. If you're retired now, stop doing these 10 things. And if you're in your 40s or 50s and thinking about retirement, which let's be honest, most of you are, you should start planning now to let go of these habits too. Retirement isn't the finish line. It's the moment you finally get to realign and redesign your life on your terms, but only if you're willing to stop doing the things that don't serve you anymore.